Good evening, everyone. Today is the 16th of November. We are on the Check Drop. This is episode 23. 23 weeks in a row we've done this. My apologies, first off, to people that are expecting comedian Pat Godwin this evening. Pat Godwin has a sick child, so he had to bail on us this evening. But we have an amazing replacement who was booked for a couple weeks from now, but we just moved him up a couple notches because he's got a baby on the way, and this kind of works out pretty good in the long run. So, all right. So today's guest has been seen on NBC's Last Comic Standing, Conan O'Brien, and has a clean stand-up comedy special on Dry Bar Comedy. Please welcome to the Check Drop, Mr. Andrew Slater.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Chad. Good to be here.
How are you doing?
Oh, great. Just great. I feel like everybody's, especially up here in the Pacific Northwest where I live, it's just getting really dark, figuratively and literally. It's like 4 o'clock. The sun is gone.
Been in the news a lot. Were you in Portland?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Portland's been in the news a lot. Obviously, everyone thinks we're on fire and rioting, but it's really not like that at all.
Yeah, I don't see flames behind you coming out of your window, so that's a good sign.
No. We have a lot of everyone's like we're full of Antifa and Proud Boys, but it's way less that and way more like free little libraries and certified backyard habitats. That's what I see everywhere. Those signs that say certified backyard habitats, which I don't know what that really means. But
now, typically,
we have a lot of those.
We keep this podcast more obviously in the comedy vein. But I mean, since I got you and since we, I guess, brought it up, now how do you think that do you think that there was like how did that blow up to such a big thing? And you're saying just the opposite, basically.
Yeah, well, it's like makes for good TV. I think the controversy of it. Also, I think like I don't know when it started before me living in Portland, but like I think the Proud Boys or something came to Portland because it's like this, how it's in Portlandia and it's kind of representative as this liberal kind of fantasy land, and so this was like, where could we go to go to the belly of the beast, like if you're right. Trying to agitate. So then it just became sort of this like gladiator arena for people to hit each other with like Nerf swords and stuff, and it's just now it's just kind of ruined the downtown area of Portland. But it's confined really. If you come here, you'll be like, where is it all? Where's it all going on? And it's kind of a small part of downtown, but everything else
still going on? Is that still like in that?
I mean, no. That now, not. They still do nightly protests, but they're very small and normally they're not violent.
Okay.
Unless something happens, but it's So I don't know. It's
Portland,
weird how Portland became
keeping it weird, right? Isn't that their tagline? What's their tagline? Keeping Portland weird or something like that?
Yeah. We're keeping Portland weird. I think they were thinking more like
quirky,
kind of dog-friendly restaurant than like war zone for white nationalists. But whatever becomes weird, I guess.
Just new titles.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you doing okay through the whole pandemic? I mean, how's your comedy world?
Comedy world is okay. Obviously, I'm with everybody else. Gigs getting canceled and everything. It sucks, but I've kind of fell into these virtual shows it's kind of like half charity, half corporate, raising money for the food bank. It's called Stand Up to Corona.
Yeah.
So I get to do a fair amount of those a week. It's not enough money to like live off of long term, but I more like it because it makes me feel productive. It's like, you get a couple bucks, you do a show. It's like usually 10 minutes. And then you can say you raise money for the food bank, which is a good cause right now. So that has been like my main source of comedy lately. And then like I started a couple podcasts and try to stay busy with that. And then we were talking about this before we jumped on, but I really view this whole pandemic as like like a meteor that killed the comedians, and you just want to be one of the species left standing when the dust cloud finally settles. Like whatever that
the
is. 6 months from
platypus
now.
of the
Platypus. That's our bumper sticker at Summit. Just be a platypus. Find a way to survive.
Yeah. We got
it's like the NCAA tournament, it's like survive in advance. You don't have to win pretty right now. Just win ugly.
Yeah.
Get through it, and there'll be better days.
Now I've heard so many people say this to me, and it's like, man, like, you just wait. Everybody wants to laugh after this is all over. Like, and you're like, I wish I had a nickel for every time they've said that. No, literally, I wish I had a nickel because I'm not making a nickel off this podcast. So it's funny to hear that. And it's kind of like a recession, I guess. Although I hear today was the biggest day of the stock market ever, which I just think it still baffles me that like that is actually happening or can happen during a time where you and I are talking just to talk because I'm having trouble selling live comedy and you're not really allowed to do it so much. So
totally. I think first of all, the stock market is not, I don't think is representative of the economy, as a whole, especially for stand-up. It's never really been an accurate measure of how well I'm doing as a comedian. The Bush tax cuts didn't really spurn on my open mic donations when I was in the early 2000s or whatever. But I don't know. Like I said, I think like it is like a recession. It's like hard times, but like I said, I think you just have to find a way to matter for the next 6 months. And then I don't think it'll be, so what you were saying, like people are like, oh my God, people are going to be, and my wife has said this too, to kind of pick up my spirit. She's like, oh, it's going to be like, people can't wait to go out once they get this vaccine and comedy clubs are going to be packed. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's going to be the same. It's going to be like it was before the virus. It'll be, it'll be a bitch to get people to come to shows. It was before, it'll be after, but I'll take the same. I'll take it like how it was.
Well, if you can get that much money, do you feel now like going back in that it's going to be a little dip in the like the clubs per se? Because the clubs are kind of the baseline of like who sets the market as far as do you think that people are like, hey, we haven't had shows in the last 9 months, and hey, can you do this now for X amount of money when I know normally you used to go in at this amount of money? Do you think there's going to be a lot of that going on?
Yeah, I think everyone's going to take their shots, like I'm sure everyone's feeling it. So everyone's going to go, can we do this and get the comics for less? But that's where it's up to comics and, brokers of comedy and stuff to go, hey, we all felt the pain on both sides. Okay. Right. Why are we going to take less? You're not going to charge less for tickets. I know with like these cruise ship comics they're already talking about like what it's going to be like going back. And I'm sure, I don't know the exact plans or whatever, but I'm sure cruise ships are going to try and squeeze the comics and go, because they haven't worked, and it'll be like a year by the time they get back on.
Right.
And I'm sure they're going to squeeze them and say, hey, we only got $50 billion from the federal government. How are we supposed to survive, with paying you the same rates?
Did they get a bailout? I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah.
They did?
Yeah, they got a huge bailout. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, that was part of the initial.
Different from the PPP?
I think they got like the same way the airlines and a few other industries got like a specific carve out of money. I think that they got that too.
Got it. Okay.
But I mean, and look, I'm not like anti cruise line or whatever. And there's a lot of people with jobs who that's a big industry, and I want to keep every industry going. I wish they would bail everybody out. I think it's crazy that they've been waiting this long to do another round of it. So
yeah, well,
a lot of people are going to go out of business that didn't need to.
I read a headline.
But I don't want to be one of them.
Just this week that I think I posted it on Instagram. Even I guess somewhere there was a first cruise ship back, and they had a person get off like the very first day because they got COVID. So
yeah, no,
I mean it's too soon. You can't. The fact that they're going out without doing the vaccine first, that kind of.
No. And we're so close. and like, with this positive vaccine news, it's like, why are we going to rush these next 2 months? We're so close to people being able to get vaccinated, and then you don't have to worry about it. So I would just, if I were them, I would wait and then just go back to the way it was before, but I'm sure they'll try and find an edge somewhere. And then it's just what comics are going to be willing to take. And you got to balance survival with, trying to keep the industry going. So.
Now you started going into the cruise market. What's the percentage of your work before all this was going down, like in the cruise market?
I mean, I would do 10 to 12 weeks a year on average.
Okay.
On a ship.
That's like,
and only for one.
That's like 20%. Quick math.
Yeah. I mean, the money's good. So just because it's only 12 weeks, but it outpaces like club work and stuff like that because of the money. But yeah, I'd say about 20%. And, and then it's so funny though, because even when I was doing it, I would always tell myself, because the money's really good. And whenever I get a gig where the money's good, and it's the same with colleges too, in the back of my head, I'm always like, okay, but you got to diversify. Like, you don't want to be like a guy who is like, oh man, cruise ships pay a lot. I'll just do all cruise ships and then I'll be rich, because in my head, they like, one person could take this away from me. And it's just one person could go, we don't want to work him anymore. And then you're done, with that cruise line. And there's only like 2 or 3 of them that you want to work. So, in my head, I would always go, they could take this away at any second. What else do you got? Get your stuff on Sirius XM. Get your stuff, like, have other revenue streams all the time, because, you want to have stuff they can't just take away from you on a whim. And I should have been better, 10 years ago about building out a podcast and working on an online following. But I'm more of like the bricklayer type comedian. I want to write the joke. I want to do the gig. I want to cash the check, and I don't always want to think about it in this big picture. But as I've gotten older, I think I'm definitely, and during this pandemic, there's nothing to do but think.
Right. For
sure, I'm trying to think like, okay, have some revenue streams. No one can just take away from you because they don't respond to an email.
Yeah. Well, I've often told comedians that the spokes on the comedy wheel, like, your wheel doesn't go around very well if it's only got one spoke. So if you can get all the different, I always said the 5 C's, clubs, colleges, corporates, cruises, churches. Those are kind of like, all the main revenue streams for that. And there's obviously other ones too, like you said, like social media ways of generating income with that, and like XM, Sirius, etc. But as far as performing live stand-up, those are the main. And if you can diversify and do that, you definitely help your chances. Not in a pandemic year. I mean, that's right. Unfortunately, that was the one thing, right? That nobody knew that left hook that we just got all sucker punched. And I used to joke with my wife saying, I knew, like, it's so weird, like, out of the box thinking that I'm always, as a business owner, what's next? Like, how do I always stay, ahead of the game and such? And I've said this a couple times on this podcast, like, just that, like, what was the one thing, like, and I could never think of it. And the only thing I could always think of, like, I was like, maybe the holograms will take over and nobody will want to see live stand up. And that was it. My wife's like, no, that's stupid. Like, they're always going to be live. People want to go out and see live events. Like, yeah, you're right. And then I'm like, oh, pandemic. Damn it. We didn't think about that one. So now writing it out. So
well, no, and I talked to a dude I remember talking to a kind of an old timer on a cruise ship one time, and he was like, because I said that same thing. I was like, in my head, I'm always like, they could take this away any second. What am I doing to diversify? And he goes, it's good you're thinking that way. But he also said, in my experience, this is the one industry that's recession proof. And he was talking about specifically, I know like clubs wouldn't agree with that, but he was talking about specifically cruise lines. He was like, the money's been the same, or, my rate has never gone down. I've gone through a million different recessions and, whatever, slow times. And he's like, it's been about the same the whole time. And so it is funny, like, they found the one way to really kill live comedy, and it's a bummer.
Yeah. But just entertainment in general. I mean, I think I think comedy has it a little bit better off than say like the bands and such. I think that's going to be a little bit more hesitant to, they say, have a an outdoor festival, or or just every summer every major city has like that outdoor shed, right, that has like 10-12,000 people that they bring in, those kind of mid-tier bands with a couple other ones, and they're half of them are sitting there in the overpriced seats, and then the other ones get the $20 Groupons and lawn seats that I always get. But I think people are going to be so hesitant to go do that. Whereas I feel like something more in a smaller thing like the clubs and such, it's going to be more beneficial for the stand-ups before longevity for like these other bands. And you assume like say like the Mumford and Sons of the world and all these other big name acts, they're probably doing okay, and they can ride the wave a little bit and financially, but they do have employees and all those mid-tier bands all the way down the line. You wonder how many of those bands are going to break up. I keep thinking that, like, all these bands that you haven't heard from in a while, and then you're like, they're not releasing any music, and then,
or it forces them, because with music it's like you even have more opportunity to like make money digitally, I think, and it could force them to just go not break up, like, hey guys, we got to record some new shit. we didn't think we were going to have to write another new song for the rest of our lives. We might have to write a new song.
Right. You can't, if you can't tour off your one hit wonder, I mean, what are you going to do?
A second hit.
Yeah, you got, and that's going to be pretty hard. I mean, I can't. I mean, I'm trying to think of like something that like a hit song that's come out of the last like 9 months. Other than
I'm worse than you are. I'm like, so out of
WAP.
But
maybe.
It's funny you said the thing about tears. Right. It's funny you said the thing about tears with music, because I've been thinking a lot about, and Roy Wood said this in an article or something. I remember reading him in print saying this. He's like, when these clubs do come back, they're going to book big acts for small venues, because bigger acts are going to not be allowed to play huge theaters or whatever. So they're going to be desperate to tour. So they're going to play the smaller clubs. Now, where does that leave the middle tier headliners and stuff? Because it's going to leave you without any bookings, for that whole, and then it's going to be backlogged for a whole year. I mean, I have like 6 clubs that canceled. And at first I was like, oh, I'll just get those rebooked. It's like, they're not going to have, a spot for me for another full year probably. So again, like, I think comics, especially if you're in like a middle tier headliner space, clubs have got to be like low on the list of your plans as far as how you're going to make money in 2021.
I've said that a few times over the last 23 weeks as well on this podcast. Just the same thing. It's a pecking order. So, Bill Burr used to go into 3,000 seat venues and sell them out. And obviously, again, that's not going to be prudent to go in and do that before the world gets back to somewhat normal. So just that, he's going to want to work. So he's going to call the Improv and go, hey, I know it's only 400 seats. And like, it's literally just everybody keeps getting knocked down. So now you might have to go in and feature whatever. I'm not saying that you personally, but like,
no,
comics, but it's just that, like, everybody gets knocked down. So, and like, can you imagine? I mean, there's always that the comedian, right? When you create, you're working on your act, and like you work your way up to the open mics and such. And can you imagine, like, if January 1st of this year, like, you've been doing open mics for like 7 years or whatever, you're like, you know what? I've got enough time under my belt. This is the year 2020. I'm gonna quit my job and go out and do this full time. Can you imagine? I'd love to have somebody. I need somebody on this podcast right now so I can talk to them.
I got the guy. I got the guy. Literally.
And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, just like, are you shitting me right now?
I literally have the person for you. My friend Beau Johnson. He's a great comic, very funny guy. He's opened for me a bunch. And this year, like, I'm saying not even this year. I'm talking about like February 5th. He quit his day job. He had all this work, like he had like loony bins lined up or something, and so he was excited. He was going to go work out on the road, and like literally he's in the middle of Oklahoma and everything's getting shut down. And he had just quit his job like a couple of weeks ago.
Had he booked how far out did he book his calendar? Like had he booked like 6 months out?
Months. He had, because that's why he was confident to quit. He finally had booked himself out enough road work where he's like, okay, I think I can actually make this happen. And he had a good day job working at a food bank in Seattle. And
hold on, Gabriel Michael just said was also about to say Beau Johnson.
Oh yeah, no, so Dave knows, man. And it's
if
like,
Beau Johnson is watching the stream right now, please reply in the comments. I'm going to send you an invite and let you tell the story too.
You gotta have him on because then he. So the best part is though,
I'm going to get him on
everything
here.
gets canceled. Everything is canceled. He like flies home to Seattle. And he gets his job back. They let him come back. He's like,
that was nice.
Do-overs, let me back, please. And they're like, yeah, you can come back. So
what line of work was he in, do you know?
Yeah. There's also a guy named Matt Markman who was in Vegas. He's a funny guy. And he quit his day job right before the pandemic and was going to do, he has two kids, or a kid and his wife. And they were going to do an RV tour. And he booked himself like an entire tour across the country in an RV, and like all of that got canceled. But he quit, and I don't think he went back. And I think they did the RV tour, but then they just like, saw the country.
You're like, all right, now we're going to Topeka, and all right,
yeah,
cool. We're gonna go see the world.
Yeah, he's like, we're in Topeka to do another virtual show. I could have done this from anywhere, but good to be in Topeka.
Man, that would be the worst because the backstory on that, like say that guy's married, right? He's got a kid or a kid on the way. I mean, there's a lot of conversations involved with like, hey, honey, I want to follow my dream. And this is what's going to happen. Here's how I'm going to do it. And you probably laid it all out like professionally, like, and because I assume once you get older like that it's a little bit harder to jump off that corporate bandwagon to pursue that dream. Right. Luckily, I did it. When I started Summit Comedy, I was 26 and I was engaged at the time, but my soon-to-be wife was very supportive and was like, hey, yeah, you got this. I believe in you. Let's do it. So a little bit different if you got a kid or a kid on the way. I mean, that's got to be a lot tougher sell, I guess, per se.
It's a tougher sell, but I think there's got to be something kind of. It would suck. Don't get me wrong. It would absolutely suck to make the plunge, convince your loved ones that you're going to do this, and then to express the confidence back into you that you should do it, and then for like COVID to happen, that would suck. But at least it's one of those things where it's like, well, what the hell, like you can't even say I didn't fail, Right. It's just, what are you going to do? You can't really blame me, So it's. Right. At least there's a way to it's like a cosmic sort of joke and everybody's screwed. So it takes some of the sting out of it, I would think.
Yeah. My wife has a phrase that I hear her say she's a school teacher. So I hear her say little things I pick up along the line that that I'll use down the road. Like, oh, that's a good line. I'll use that. And I use things like, hey, well, these are the things you need in your toolbox. Those kind of like phrases, whatever. So she always says, right. If you're going to fail forward. So, just keep moving ahead. And I was like, so that kind of falls into that realm, I guess. But man, I can't imagine, man. Again, maybe you always want somebody that's worse off than you, I guess. Maybe that's why I brought that up, I guess. And I don't know. Maybe I've met Beau Johnson. I don't know. Maybe I've seen him somewhere, but I feel bad.
That should be your podcast. You should change your theme and you're like, I just want to interview people who are having a worse time than me.
Who's worse off than me?
Who's worse off than Chuck? Come on the show. Are you homeless? Come on the show. I'd love to interview.
There's worse podcasts out there.
Yeah, that's a good hook. I like it. I might steal that.
Everybody's got something, right? So speaking of children, you have a child on the way.
Yes.
All right.
My wife is 38 weeks pregnant.
Oh yeah. You're the final hour here. So now if you were in that scenario, say you had started in January I'm going full time. What do you think your bride would say? Would she support you?
You know what's weird? I think she would. We're a little unique though because she was a stand-up. That's not how we met. But she was a stand-up in LA, in Portland then LA, and then she kind of transitioned into improv, and now she does screenwriting. And I think that because of that, and because we've both lived that kind of starving artist lifestyle for a really long time, this is like, it's scary not having like to see on the calendar how you're going to make your money for the next 6 months. That's very scary. But also we've kind of been there before. And it's funny because she lost her job literally in March. She got laid off because she got a good day job here in Portland. But when the pandemic hit, she got laid off. We found out she was pregnant. And all my gigs got canceled, like all within a week, right? Like it was a real shitstorm. And then you'd think we'd like but we were kind of like, oh, well, we'll be broke. But we kind of been there before. Yeah, exactly. We're in love. We've got a pretty decent setup, and things seem to figure themselves out that way. So I think she would be supportive, but she's pretty unique that way just because, she might chase after the same crazy ass dream, and I would support her. So
yeah.
And then if our daughter can't go to college, it doesn't really bother either of us, as long as we're able to do what we want to do. So
you can learn most things on YouTube these days. Do you really need to go to college?
College is a scam. Look at that. All these people are trying to get their student loan debt.
It is a kind of a tough sell now. Like I can see, like if my son came to me and go, listen, I don't think I need to go to college. And if he explained to me, like if he was driven to go down a certain path without doing that, I probably be all for it. I mean, because people clearly make a good living without going to college, and you can still learn things. So
yeah, I mean, I
go back in this virtual world now. Holy shit! I mean, my son he's a freshman in college, so he's no longer at college. He came home. I can tell you though, the amount of money that I'm saving by him not being there, and granted, I know he's not having the college experience that we all did who has gone to college, and that does suck for him. But the amount of extra money that you put into that program, it's baffling. So it's kind of crazy to see this now, and I'm like, all right, well, at least we got not a free year, but like a highly reduced rate for the first year. So
they are changing the money because they're not having on-campus activities. I was curious about that actually.
So they're definitely, as far as working the college market as a comedian, yes, there are many schools that have cut budgets tremendously. I mean, and they just cut across the board. I mean, the amount of people that are employed are definitely down. There's constantly I'm getting like, oh, he or she's no longer the contact there. Now it's this person because now I'm doing 7 jobs instead of 3. So that kind of scenario. So it is definitely being the cuts are across the board. I think, part of it's just a trickle down thing. It's simple mathematics, right? I mean, not like if a college has typically, in a normal year, 20,000 students, I have to say it's reduced probably at least by 30% this year due to people that, hey, I'm just taking a break and or going virtual. So all those fees add up. So if say that 30% aren't paying into that student activity fee or whatever, yeah, it's just simple. It's just all gets kicked down the line. And now they're doing virtual bingo nights or something like that for $100 and trying to entertain the students that way. So, I mean, the amount of shows that I have booked virtually and live, it still surprises me during this pandemic year, to be honest with you. So, I mean, you just did a live show for me recently, right?
Yeah, in Pueblo.
How did that go? I don't even know if I remember talking to you about that.
It was interesting because I did it the year before. It's kind of like their honors event. Like it's like you're emceeing sort of this award ceremony, like the Emmys, but for scholastic achievements and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the year before, it was like really cool. I mean, everyone dresses up. I mean, I had to wear a suit. They had like 500 people there, the kids, their parents, his teachers, the school president, everybody's there. And they made it this huge deal. And at first I was like, when you're a comic, you just want to do your show. You don't want to MC something, you just want to do your act.
But unfortunately, the market comes with some a little bit more expectations sometimes, because they do pay pretty well, and it's better than just going and doing a club gig where you just go up there.
Totally. But I mean, when I see that on the MC, there's part of me like, all right. But going in skeptical like that, I still walked away from like, that was like one of the coolest things I've ever done, because I felt like they got a lot out of it. It was cool to see them, their whole lives are starting and they're being honored, and these are like great kids and all this stuff. And then this year it was the same event, but like so pared down, like no parents, no school administrators, really like 2 or 3, one woman trying to run the whole tech on a laptop in the background, and things were getting kind of confused, and there's like 20 kids in there, and they're all spaced out like as far as humanly possible. I had to wear a mask on stage
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they were streaming it, and there was some controversy about the school president not wearing a mask. And so like from now on, anybody on camera wears a mask at all times. So it was definitely like not the glitz and glamour. I mean, it was fun, and
I had a fun hear time you though? I mean, like just being muffled through the.
And that's the thing, is I wanted to change, and then I was worried about using the same microphone as someone else. I didn't want to. I was more worried about that than the mask, know. And so I was changing microphone covers every time I'd go up. So I think they could hear me. It was probably it wasn't as great as it could have been, obviously, in normal circumstances, but that was a good example of like, wow, even when we're doing live shows, it is not the same. I've done live shows since, I've done like probably like 9 or 10 of them since the pandemic started, all in like different circumstances. I've done one where they literally hung plexiglass like 6 inches in front of my face. So you're like performing like in a terrarium or whatever, like a lizard.
I'd almost rather that than have the muffled mask over you. Yeah, absolutely.
Way better. I would take that 10 times out of 10 over wearing a mask.
Yeah, because the sound's still going out and about to everybody. So
yeah, and you're talking into the mic behind the glass.
Yeah,
like, fine. That was fine.
Isn't it funny? I talked about this. I had Dave Williamson on last week, and he's been all over the country opening for Burt Kreischer, and we were just joking about it. Like, isn't it funny how like all the things that we typically say to do to run a comedy night, now it's the exact opposite. Like, hey, it's got to be inside, never outside. And now it's like, hey, let's do some outdoor shows.
Right.
And they're like, hey, pull the people up as close to the stage as possible. We need intimacy so you can see their faces. Now it's like, nope, get the fuck back, move away from the stage. So
we want low ceilings, and tight corridors. We don't want a big airy space where there's great ventilation. We do not want that.
Yeah. Now we need to see the stars, like to make this work.
Yeah, I know. Dave does those shows where they like honk. I haven't done any of those where they honk the horn for laughter. That seems insane to me.
Well, I asked him about that, and I said that's got to be like very disruptive to your set. And he said at first it was, but they don't. They run a promo thing and go over the rules and such to not do that until the end. Right. So that's your big applause break, I guess, at the end at the end of your set or the end of the actual show. So they don't do it during.
So the horns aren't like standing in for laughs. It's not like
no.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I was afraid of too. I was like, how do you like you be doing a bit and like so it's got to be So he said it wasn't that way. Typically, it was at the end of everybody's set, like him or Jesus Trejo or one of the other guys. Before getting off, at the end they honk and then do their blinkers of the lights and stuff. And he said he did one, I can't remember where, Philly maybe, that it was just like tons of people there. And he goes, one of the coolest ovations he's ever gotten though. So it was just really cool. It's just different, right? I mean, everything's different. So we've learned to pivot and make it work. And
that's what I mean.
And kudos to them, because they they are the only ones that I feel like that whole Burt Kreischer camp crew, that they've done it right and they're doing it well. And because production costs has got to be crazy expensive and such, but they're just making it work. And I don't know if anybody else that has wanted to tackle that, because it does seem like a lot of work. And of course, people come to me all the time and go, "Hey, Chuck, these guys, I saw them. They're doing this thing. You should try to do that." Okay, great.
Right.
Like, I don't have 30 grand laying around for every show I want to just put on to run that risk of not having people show up with a horn.
No, but I mean, that's what I mean. Like, so that's the big version of that. It's like, be a platypus, right? Like, okay, this, everyone, when this whole thing started, there was a lot of like, I'll never do a Zoom show because that's not real comedy, all this stuff. And
right.
Like, all right, but I like seeing the innovation. I think it's whatever. Doing a show for a bunch of cars honking at you is not good in any relative term. But it's better than not doing a show. And that's just how I feel.
Right.
And I like seeing it. I like seeing how creative comics have gotten. And the ones who are trying that kind of stuff are the ones who are going to be around after all this. And the ones who just kind of threw their hands up and like, well, I'll wait till I can go back to doing it the way I wonder if that'll be around for them.
Now, I feel like most of the people I talked to shortly thereafter all this hit, around March 15th or so, that most comedians were that way. Like, I'll wait. Did you ever have that, like a week or two or a month, or did you just immediately like pivot? Were you smart enough to get ahead of the curve and to change and pivot, or no?
I was not smart enough to go, oh, I'm going to do virtual shows but I was panicked and I was open to any idea. So like, I got approached, like I said, that stand up to Corona thing, I got approached with that pretty early on. And it was like, yes, I am all over that. Like, what can I do? And then I had to like do like an audition set. And I was like, how does that even work? But I worked on it and I was like, I want to kill this because I just want to matter. I want to survive. And so
that's a great line. Smart. I just want to matter.
Yeah. I'm not like a, forward thinking genius. Like, I'm pretty old school, just like I said, nuts and bolts comic, but I also was not shooting down any idea. Like, if someone had a weird idea to do, I was all over trying it, because I was also in a situation where my wife was pregnant. So I had to be like extra careful about any live show, even like the outdoor shows.
Yeah.
The few that I've done, I mean, I'm wearing like the good N95 mask. I bought a face shield, for when I had to fly, and I had the mask and the shield. And like, so I went like balls to the wall safe, and I wasn't going to just do random shows for a couple bucks here or there because it wasn't worth the risk. Once she has a baby, again, like I might take a few more risks, but anyway, yeah. So well, I don't think I was like smart, but I definitely was willing.
Yeah. I admit when I do things right and wrong, and I do admit that I did that wrong. I did the hey, I'm gonna sit around. I'm gonna sit around for 3 months and not do shit, and I'm gonna golf a lot and just wait for the world to start back. It wasn't quite 3 months, but like it was. I was very vocal about it. Even some of my peers, and I was like, it's not the same, and I just couldn't get past that. We all knew it wasn't the same. I couldn't get past the factor of selling an inferior product. That was something I couldn't get past, because in my soul, like, I knew it was an inferior product, and I don't care what anybody says. I still back that it's not the same and it's not as good. I have seen some really good virtual shows, but as far as it being an inferior product as opposed to a live event, of course, the ones that I do have seen put on a really great virtual show, their live show is 10 times better. So it's like just that. So So it was just once I got past that, and with some poking and prodding and self-reflecting, I guess it worked out pretty good. But if I had just had those 6 weeks back, like, because it would happen, like, the college market's pretty big for Summit Comedy. So like I had so many bookings that were canceled between March 15th and whatever, June and whatever. So it was bananas. So if I could even have 20% of that bag. Holy shit. That would have been nice.
Yeah, but I mean, in fairness to you, because we had a conversation, and I felt like I was poking at you about it a little bit, but in fairness to you, no one knew really how long this was going to last. And you're right when you say it's an inferior product. It is not anywhere near as good, So I think there is some like legitimacy to going, I want to protect the brand. I want to, I don't want to just slap. And you have to worry about it a little bit more than like individual comics, because you're like, I don't want to slap our brand on just anything,
Right. Yeah.
And now we're leaving it up to, because like sometimes, like I said, when I do these other ones, they get reviews like, oh, the comic was fine, but the internet connection wasn't very good.
Right.
So you're like, of all the things you got to worry about now, and that can be the most. I would much rather watch a comic with mediocre jokes with a good internet connection than try and watch someone like stuttering. That is like infuriating to watch.
Yeah, you planned your whole event like a week out or so, and then all of a sudden there's a hurricane coming up through the coast or whatever, and you're like, son of a bitch, like, and it's knocking out your internet and such. Like, you can't win. You can't win.
On that theme, like, it has been such a cursed year because I'm here in Portland, and I was Helium started running the comedy club in town. Started running like an outdoor comedy series. And I was like, okay, here's something I can finally do. I can be I can finally get these people in Portland who like me, that here's a show finally. And I can record it and get some new content online and all this stuff. And then they canceled the outdoor show because the wildfire smoke was so bad. So it's like, we can't go inside. We can't go outside. There's nowhere safe to breathe right
now. It's good times. I mean, vaccine's right around the corner. Like, and the world's settling down too, I think.
Yeah, no, I know. I think it's like, I don't know when the peak, they'll say the peak was. I feel like we got to be close to like, and I'm not talking about the peak of the virus. I know that we're in like a really bad spot with the virus right now. I'm just talking about like the peak of the darkness. Feels like we're either at it or just past it.
Yeah, or we're just getting used to it. Like I feel
that too.
I feel like, I mean, it's kind of the new, like, I hate the new normal phrase, but like, because it's now the old new normal. I mean, because it's been 9 months now. I mean, almost to the day, right? So it is what it is. So, hey man, we're gonna pivot a little bit because we only got about 15 minutes left. But I want to hear your Conan O'Brien story. How you got on Conan O'Brien? Because I think it's a beautiful story.
Oh yeah. So
because you stretched the truth a little bit in your story, right?
Oh yeah, that part. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not as devious as that makes it sound, but. So like I was in LA, I don't know, for 4 or 5 years. And, I had different levels of representation just about that whole time, like different kind of managers and agents, all nothing like ever very high powered. And when I got representation, and I had an agent before I worked with you even. And when that happened for me, I just assumed, oh, it's all I don't ever have to hustle again. It was like such a stupid thing. But I just thought, oh, my agent will book me now. So all I have to do is do the shows. This is great. I don't have to, imagine thinking about that really, like as a comic. But that's really what I thought, is once you get representation, you don't have to book yourself anymore. And it just could not be for any comic listening to this, please. That is not the way it works. Even the most famous comic is hustling up shit for themselves all the time.
And also let the audience know that Chuck Johnson wasn't his exclusive agent for everything, his workload.
No. This is like, anyway, so
people can be like, Chuck didn't book him very much.
No, but that's my point, is you do a great job, right? Like Summit is, not even take the bias out of it. Summit is considered one of the top college agency, right? But even if you get Summit, would you want a client who just sits on their hands and goes, oh, now Chuck's going to book me for everything?
No.
How hard are you going to work for that client, or not that client, but that comic, versus the comic who goes, oh, great, I got Chuck now. And then continues to hustle their ass off.
Yeah, the Jerry Maguire phrase "help me, help you" comes to mind quite a bit. I mean, it's a.
So if they're getting you new tapes all the time, and
Absolutely.
they're getting you, and they're like, hey, I worked at this college, and this kid really liked me, and he goes to this school. Talk to him, you know what I mean? Anyway,
yeah.
So I had that lazy kind of mindset, and finally I realized, I was like, man, you know what? This is not working, right? Like I keep waiting for this guy or these people to make me famous, and this is not working. So what I did instead is I had my friend Ryan. He worked in television as like a production, mostly reality, but he worked in production. He was like kind of this slick talking New Yorker, like very, very gregarious, like the opposite of me in like social situations. And I was like, me and my buddy Brant, we would hike Runyon and we'd go, it'd be like the perfect manager is Ryan. We can just tell him exactly what we need, tell him exactly what to do. And he gets along great with people and it'd be great. So that's what we did. I told I was like, hey, this isn't working out. I need to just do this stuff myself and refocus. And
I didn't know that part. I didn't know you had somebody that wasn't doing something and then you just kicked him to the curb. That's even better story now. All right, continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I fired my manager for a fake manager.
For Ryan. Whoever Ryan is.
No, but what happened is then Ryan, he built himself a cool website and he was like, okay. And I was like, Ryan, here are the clubs I want to work. Here are the festivals I want to do. Here are the other industries I want to get into. Here's the late night shows I want to do, and email them with my clip. Because I've been emailing late night shows just on my own because my manager wouldn't do it. So it's like I would just do it on my own, and they kind of get. I don't know if there is truth to that or not. You should talk to a late night booker and see, but definitely Ryan. So then Ryan. One of the people he emailed was guy Conan, JP Buck, and all of a sudden, bam, he was like, hey, we like your tape, and I got, some cool people who knew me in comedy to reach out to JP too, and that was Ryan kind of spearheading that. He's like, hey, Ryan would be like, this guy likes you, why don't you have him
get another fake person to piggyback what Ryan is saying?
Yeah, exactly. These are real people, actual real comedians.
People, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Not real comedy managers.
It was like so fat. And the next thing you know, like I'm booked on Conan. And by the way, Ryan's like great friends with JP now. I don't know how much JP knows about how Ryan got into the business, but they're like really good friends. I think Ryan went to his wedding, and like Ryan knows JP way better than I do. And
I didn't get an invite to his wedding.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean about Ryan just like, and like, it's so true. Me and Brant were talking about this. There's no like business degree for being a comedy manager. There's no degree for being a booking agent. Right. You're good at it because of the person you are and the relationships you can develop, I think. And Ryan, we just knew would be like good at it. So
yeah, it's kind of a little bit about all who you know and how you just can interact with people. Like you said, I always joke with my parents and said, I didn't need to get a college degree to do what I'm doing, obviously, but I needed to go to college because that's where I kind of learned the ropes. I went through the campus activities and that's kind of how I got into this world. And I had gone to a NACA my senior year and such. That's kind of when I was like, oh, wait, well, all these guys are agents and I can do that.
It would be funny, though, if you did this job, especially with colleges, and you had never been to college. You're like, I don't know what goes on there, but this is
ironically, I don't know if you know the story, but I was hired as Carrot Top's college agent right out of college. And the reason for that was, hey, this kid's out of college. He can relate to them and like he can sell them to them. So pretty smart concept on that. So
you're like a Ryan.
Yeah, I am. I'm Ryan.
You're Ryan. Hey, I want to ask you a question though about colleges.
Yes.
Because before you brought up the Conan thing, you said like the new normal a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think, because the way NACAs, for people who don't know, the way NACAs normally work, there's like 4 or 5 of them a year. Mm-hmm. Comedians and performers fly to a city where students have gathered in that region to watch you perform and then choose who to book. And to me, it always seemed like this sort of outdated way of picking talent, right? Because like you have so much volume of material online, like why do they need to see you in person? Do you think that NACA will go back ever to the way that it was before the pandemic?
That's a really good question. Well, I don't know if I think you know this, but they did a two virtual conferences this fall.
Yeah, I was like a first alternate or something. It pissed me off.
Right. Yeah. So, which meant nothing basically. So,
because everyone can make that flight.
Because actually, it wasn't even. You didn't have to show up live. You canned your virtual performance and sent it to them. So there's no way you could be. Like, nobody was getting bumped to get moved up the list.
If you missed that call time, you are a moron.
Yeah. So ironically, and that went, well, let's just say it went less than stellar. There were, I think, well, I know, and this is not braggadocious at all, that Summit Comedy got the most comedy bookings. But I mean, I say that with a grain of salt because I think out of the two conferences was maybe 12 or 14 like forms filled out, which haven't all solidified into bookings. I think we maybe booked 5 out of those. But so was it worth my time? I don't know. I mean, I didn't lose money. I think a lot of people did lose money in that aspect. So ironically, this is, and I hope somebody from NACA is watching right now because I've been on an email thread with them the last couple of days, and I think they're calling me tomorrow because I feel like so they're doing they have a national conference they always do in February, and it's kind of like NACA to the 10th power typically. That's where they, all the William Morrises and the bigger agencies, ICMs, APAs, CAAs, they usually go and they bring in some bigger comedians and bands and such to kind of spotlight their talent and such. They're doing it virtual again. So I don't know if how much of a, kind of piggybacking off your question, I don't know how much, are people going to go to that if they just pretty much saw what they're probably going to see on the virtual side they just did. But my biggest complaint was when the ruling for submitting, as you know, you send in like a 2-minute clip and they judge you from that clip to get a showcase to go perform live. So how they did the virtual showcases, they asked that it be all 100% live, like you doing your show right here in front of your Zoom, and for 4 minutes, and then you submit that to them. You can it, and then you can edit it, but you have to send that to them. So my thought was, I had 4 different comedians showcase, and I know you know them all. Zoltan was one, Francisco Ramos, Jasmine Ellis, and who else? Drawing a blank. Regardless, I reached out and said, listen, I think I know what's best here. Let's do a hybrid of you being funny on a Zoom and then kind of kicking back live clips interspersed with just reality, I guess. And it went over great. And obviously it went over great because we got more bookings, comedy bookings than the average agency. So this time around for this virtual conference coming up, and I pray that somebody's watching this in NACA land because they are trying to tie everybody's hands saying, no, if you submit this time that way, we are going to ban your videos and your money will not be refunded. And I say that's censorship. So my thoughts are, so again, I only bring this up because you asked. And
I'm curious.
My thoughts on that is it's our money. It's Andrew Slater's money. It's everybody's who's submitting to said conference. Let us submit how we want to submit and not have our hands tied to how NACA thinks we should submit our talent. It's ridiculous. It's a form of censorship, I believe. And their response was, these colleges said that they thought it would be more representative of a virtual show. And then I responded again today, hey, guess what, NACA? 50% of the shows I'm booking are live. So you don't know my business. I know my business. We know our business better than people sitting in an office at NACA. So
I would say like, I could see them saying, we're just going to do everything live, like no can, nothing. we want to see you how you would do a show live for us via Zoom, and you got to be there, and you got to have your internet good, and you got to have good lighting, and you can't screw it up, because if it were a real show, these would be all the circumstances we would require, you know.
Right.
So I could see that, but then I also agree with you, because like
the conference is not until February, so
right.
Hopefully,
and then once
the bookings for those are usually in the fall. So I'm planning on all these bookings to be live. So
live shows.
I don't think
that part is stupid.
Their mindset is just baffling. So,
and also like the idea of having like pure Zoom shows, you know, where you're not cutting in and out, it's like that's not great either, because if you are going to do an hour show via Zoom, everybody's attention spans on Zoom is half of what it is.
I don't book a show more than 30 minutes on Zoom. That's our
50
rule.
50 minutes is a long time. So if you are doing a 50-minute show on Zoom, you better be cutting in or doing something different, you know, in between to keep people's attention.
Yeah, I don't book anything more than 30 minutes. And then for the colleges, I book 30 minutes followed by 15-minute virtual Q&A and meet and greet. So, I mean, because anybody, I mean, can talk for 15 minutes about ourselves. Hell, we've been doing it for 56. So,
right.
So, I mean, like, so that aspect is different than just you trying to create their attention and making them laugh for an hour. So once I did that, I think and the schools actually kind of like the engagement factor of that meet and greet afterwards and the Q&A, that like, all right, we saw this person perform, and now like, oh, now we can ask some questions and personal, and you know, what's it like being on the road and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a good transition, I think, but you're spot on. The attention level, it's just not there. So, hey, we're going to pivot here one more time here, because kind of run out of time here. So we usually wrap up the end of the show with like a good story, or like a hell gig story, like something that like what's your go-to story, whether it's your best story that Chuck Johnson booked for you. No, just kidding. Or just like your worst hell gig story.
Oh man! All right. Well,
it can be either one, your best or your worst.
I'll do my worst. I honestly, it's funny, like your memory for things that are good, those just kind of run together. But then the ones that are bad always stick out. I did. I'm trying to think of like. Something quick here. Okay, well, I'll do like bad heckles. How about that? So one time I did casino and the Tulalip in Washington State, and it was I would always bomb, and I was featuring there, and it's like COVID friendly. It was so spread out before COVID. Tables are far apart, really high ceilings, and I was bombing, you know, and I was just going along, kind of like in my head, just sort of like, oh, this sucks, so I can't wait to get out of here, but then doing my act or whatever. And I hear this table say something, and I made this big mistake. I was like, what was that? You know, you should never get him to repeat it. But it's just this kind of an old man, and he goes, and it's like this 80-year-old couple, and they're like slot jockeys, you know. And this old guy's like, "We're not enjoying the show." That's what he said. And then I turned to his wife, who I thought she was like this kindly old woman. I thought she was going to have something. And she just was like, no.
That was the affirmation? No.
And there's like nothing I could say. They said it very politely. He wasn't mean. I asked him to speak. And I was like, they're not enjoying the show. I don't know.
How long were you into your career at this point?
Oh, like 3 years or something. I don't know. I used to do this thing where when I first started, if I was bombing, I would try to kind of just like retreat into a shell. And then instead of going, like you see comics get very confrontational and like want to go, they're bombing. They want to find out why. Like, what the hell? What's going on with you people?
This kills the
opposite. Right. I would just go deeper and deeper into like kind of a robot version of my act to like protect myself and then get out of there. And I've learned that that's not great. It never gets if you just go deeper into material while you're bombing. You know, you're never gonna find like the perfect joke to get you out of that. You gotta address it. You gotta tell them.
That's a good one, man. Well,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate you coming on today. I know it was last minute with the change and all, but this actually works out good considering we didn't want to push it in 2 weeks when the baby was.
I know.
Way, so.
We would have been doing this from the hospital room.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I would have given you a free pass. I think so.
Oh, okay.
So, man, hey, kudos and all your success thus far, man. And like, you know, I do agree with you. I think we're gonna get over this, and it's gonna come back tenfold. And,
hell yeah. I like it.
I mean, you got a baby on the way. You got diapers and shit you got to pay for. So
right?
I
know. I'm gonna get my baby on the road. We're gonna come up with some weird virtual act.
You can get you and Beau Johnson and hop on the road and
two men and a baby.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate it again. Good luck with everything with the new baby. I can't wait to see pictures online and such. And again, thanks for coming out. And if you're listening and or watching, need a comedian for any event, go to summitcomedy.com. Andrew is available and taking orders. So hit us up. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Chuck.
Later.
See you, buddy.
Bye.